Namaste. Good morning. There's an aliveness within recently, and it just feels like it expands more and more every day. And in this morning's meditation, I really landed on one of the practices that has been probably the most pivotal, the most influential in the dissolution of the ego self, or to have less engagement with or identification with the mind, and more of a just pure experience of life instead of the mind's interpretation of life. So I'm called to share this practice. It's, again, one of the most pivotal and powerful practices that I know for embodying an immense freedom and peace, a true peace and presence. And we've talked about it before, I've mentioned it before, and it's something we'll be exploring more in depth tomorrow in satsang. But the practice is the practice of not naming anything. And specifically, not even naming anything, not just as, plant or dog, but to name the quality of the experience, not even to name the quality of the experience. So this really came on for me profoundly a number of months ago when I came out of a 10-day darkroom retreat experience. And I was down in Guatemala, and I spent an extra month after coming out of the darkroom. And I had this apartment that had a huge window that looked out over Lake Atitlan to one of the volcanoes. And it was beautiful. An interesting word, and you'll see why in a minute. But it was beautiful. It was powerful. It was powerful to sit and be with this incredibly beautiful landscape and experience without naming it beautiful. To not need to describe it in order to believe that that's the only way that the experience could be had. The mind only knows objects. That's how it knows the world. The mind needs to objectify everything and interpret everything in order to, quote, know it. But it's not really knowing the experience. It's only knowing its own interpretation of the experience. When I would sit and just be with this incredible landscape and not name it as, oh, this is beautiful, therefore this is why I like it. This is why this experience is valuable, because this landscape is beautiful. To sit with it and not describe it allowed it to be so much more than beautiful. It allowed it to be indescribable. Just to be with something. It was beautiful. That was part of the experience. It truly was beautiful. But if I named it that, it narrowed it. It narrowed the experience into a beautiful experience, and beauty was part of it, but it wasn't the entirety of it. Just to sit with the beingness, the isness of the moment, of what was there in front of me. It just allowed it to be everything. It allowed it to be so much more than just beautiful. And part of the practice is, when we do this, to sit with and to witness and view and gaze upon the experiences of our life and not name them, not describe them so rapidly. We find an expansiveness of opportunity to be with something. And one of the parts of this practice is to notice the frustration initially in that, to notice how quickly the mind says, we're not having an experience unless I can describe it. There is no experience unless it's described, unless it's named, unless it's interpreted and assessed through the conditioning of the mind. And it turns out that actually an experience is possible without a description. It's hard to describe, and it's a nuance, but it's a beautiful practice of incredible freedom, because we come into a faith of living as that which is beyond mind. The presence, the witness, the pure consciousness that doesn't need to describe things, can just be with things. One of my absolute favorite descriptions of what is, we were talking about just being with what is. And the question often arises, what does this mean? What is, to be with what is? What is what is happening just before we have a thought about it. What is what is happening just before we have a thought about it. And as soon as we have a thought about it, it narrows it into our interpretation of what is. Even if the interpretation is awesome, this is awesome, this is beautiful. You're sitting on the cliffs in Kauai looking out over the ocean and you want to name it, oh, this is beautiful. And we focus in on this is beautiful. What if we didn't describe it as beautiful? We could just sit with it. We would be with the beauty and everything else, the indescribable. So to allow life to be indescribable and know that an experience can be had even with not being described. This happens in our personal relationships, in all of our interactions. The mind constantly, this is most of the noise in our mind is constantly naming and interpreting everything. This is good, this is bad, this is this degree of good, and this degree of bad, and this degree of beautiful, and this degree of ugly. To be with something, let's say you're with something that is even that's really, ugliness is a part of it. To so quickly name it as that, right, wrong, ugly, bad, doesn't allow it to be, what else is it? It's a part of life. Yes, it is a dynamic of the human condition. Yes, in ways it is beautiful. To sit and be with a slum in Calcutta and not just immediately name it as this is terrible. These conditions are terrible. This is ugly. Yes, that's part of it, but it's not the only thing that it is. Or this beautiful volcano, oh, it's beautiful. Yes, it is, but it's not the only thing that it is. Having a conversation with somebody, oh, this is not going well, this is bad. Maybe that's true, but that's not the only thing that it is. So this is the practice that I want to invite, is to practice being with all of life and experiencing it not as the mind's interpretation, but what does the isness of being, what's that experience? To not name the quality of everything that is happening. And the mind will argue, the mind will say, but then I won't be having an experience, but then how will I know what's happening? This is the thing. How will I know what's happening? The mind thinks it knows what's happening once it is interpreted it. And the truth is, then you don't actually know what's happening. You only know your interpretation of what is happening. There's a huge liberation and beauty and freedom and peace in just being with and not having to interpret it. It's a nuance, but it's, again, the most powerful practice I know. Namaste. Blessings. Peace. If you like this video and you'd like to see similar content, please subscribe to my channel. As well, click that like button down below, and that's going to make this video more available for more people. And visit me on my website, chessedwards.com. There's a link for that down below. There you are going to find valuable resources for living a conscious, powerful, and peaceful life. As well, you're going to find information there about how to work with me one-on-one, or how you can build your own custom private immersion retreat, a 3-day retreat with me here in Sedona. As well, there's information about upcoming group retreats, virtual retreats, and so much more. I hope to see you there, and I've got a few free gifts for you as well. Thanks for watching.